Hi everyone, it's Nichol Spohr and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing some coloring spring foliage dies with Copic markers. This features all Pretty Pink Posh May release products. You may have seen this card a couple of weeks ago. I never got around to sharing the video, so I wanted to do that now. I actually had surgery, and even though I had filmed the video, I just did not feel up to doing all of the editing and all of that good stuff, but I am on the mend. I feel much better, so I wanted to get this shared now. This spring foliage die set is probably my favorite from the release. I think it's probably a lot of your favorites too. And I didn't even cut my dies apart. I simply die cut them as one panel on a half sheet of Neenah 110-pound weight smooth white cardstock, and then I'm taking Copic markers and adding color. I'm going to try to keep the cap of my marker here on the work surface as I'm coloring so you can see that color. I know I did speed up the video quite a bit. The coloring took about 40 minutes, and we do not want to sit here for 40 minutes. I could sing a song, but no one wants to hear my singing voice. And so I thought we'll just speed it up, and that way we can get to the assembly of this pretty card. Now imagine using all kinds of different color combinations. I definitely went with what I like to call rainbow feel for my card. So there's lots of reds, oranges, yellows, green, of course, right here in blues and purples. I also use this aqua color for some of the leaves. I like doing that just to pull in some more color. We're also going to have some pinks. And I like my foliage to have different color combinations. So this is definitely a more minty green color, but added in with the limier green that we just used, I think the color combination is so super pretty. So I'm simply going to kind of shade all of this out, if you will. Probably my favorite thing about this particular technique, oh, and I forgot to mention, I use Post-it tape to hold my dies into the cardstock as I was coloring. So my favorite thing is I don't have to color within the lines. I can color outside the lines because we're gonna pop all of these out and you get rid of all of that mess. So this is, even though it looks very time consuming and the coloring did take a little bit, it is so much quicker than trying to color in stamped images. So I absolutely love this technique. I am showing the marker lids here on camera, but in the description in the video down below, I have listed out each color combination I used, as well as over on my blog post, so definitely check that out. This same technique could be done with any dies you might already currently own. So you might already have some floral dies. Consider trying this the next time instead of die cutting from multiple colors of cardstock. It is so addictive and so fun, and you end up with beautifully shaded florals and foliage. I used a nice kind of magenta pink, and now I'm using a peachy red. I did really try to color like everything I thought I wanted in one color combination at a time. I of course missed some things here and there. I do think there was maybe a handful of images I ended up not using for my card, if I remember correctly. Not very many. I actually slipped them into the storage sleeve. I probably should have grabbed that before voicing over to see which ones I'd had left. Just because I thought I might be able to use them on my next project. When I use these dies, so I always like to save them in case I want to use them again. I love these oranges as well, YR04 and 07. I also missed some of the greenery I see. We'll come back to that. I really wanted to get some color down. I'm really liking the yellow, orange, pink, and red. And now we're going to do some purple. This is V12. I am avoiding the centers on most of the flowers, but there are all of those flower centers you can see as well. Here's V17. That's a big difference from V12, so we're probably going to need to pull in another color to kind of get a nice I think that's V15 if I'm not mistaken. A little yellow for the center. I'm going back with V12 and kind of cleaning up some of those edges so it's not quite so harsh. And then I think I did too much, so more V17. That's the best thing about Copic markers is they will not pill your paper, and you're able to really go back over something and fix it until you get it exactly the way you want it to look. My flower centers are all a combination of my yellows. I think for the most part, I'm trying to think if there was one I chose not to do. Maybe I did some greens. Again, are kind of purpley magenta color. I really tried to have an assortment. So this is going to be RV 55 and 66, 63, I believe. And it's just another, it's more of a purpley pink. So we've got purple, we've got pink or a magenta, and then we kind of have a purpley pink. I had a lot of different colors with my florals, and I think it looks super pretty against the background we're going to create here in a minute. And then a more red color combination than the peachy red we already did. So this is going to be a little bit deeper, a more traditional red color combination. And then we just have some greenery left, and I think we're going to just go ahead and go back with YG21, 17, and 23. And you can see my coloring pretty messy. And then you can always go back with like your darker marker and add a little more definition into the leaves as needed. And then this is a completely different green color combination. This is going to be more of a deeper green. Felt like we needed just a little bit more difference with all of our foliage. Okay, now that we have our images colored in, we are ready to grab our background. And for our background, I am going to use the new Pinstripe stencil. If you guys have been here for a while, you know how much I love a diagonal stencil. Diagonal stencils are totally my jam. I think they are fantastic for anything. Same goes for diagonal stripe backgrounds. I think they just serve to create a little bit of interest without overpowering the main design. So you can see here I'm popping out all my images because I have that post-it tape on the back. I wanted to kind of show how easy this was to do, how it holds it in place, but they still pop out because these are all die cut. Much, much easier to color them in the sheet than trying to color all those itty bitty pieces, trying to hold them down with your fingernail or whatever. So I always like to kind of hold them in the cardstock until that's done. I did notice a couple of my images didn't die cut, so I popped everything else out just in case, and I lined the die back up and ran it back through my die cutting machine so that I could recut a couple of those branches, and voila, just like that, they are die cut. So the Pinstripe stencil I love. So you can use multiple colors with it. You can do one color like I'm going to do here, or a couple shades in one color family, all kinds of things. I will say with anything that has a delicate little stripe like this, or any delicate pieces, there's lots of different stencils out there with delicate pieces. I would highly recommend using some PIXIE spray or some sort of temporary adhesive to hold your stencil down in place while you're working with it so that those little sections aren't shifting around. I'm apparently cleaning up my marker mess so that I have room to work, because I did try to use every marker in my Copic collection, I think, for this card. But PIXIE spray will be your best friend. I sprayed it on, and then I like to give it a minute or so, and then I place it right on my background, which measures 4¼ by 5½ inches. We're going to take some Pawsitively saturated ink from Simon Says Stamp in TIDEPOOL and TROPIC. I did use 2 shades in the same color family. Most of it is TIDEPOOL. We're going to add a little TROPIC. You can see I'm concentrating the ink color in the center of the panel. That's going to naturally give the edges a very faint line, which is the look I'm going for. I've been really loving this technique for the last month or so. It's a little less perfect. And then I kind of want to play around with some of my die cuts. I want to make sure that what I envision in my head is going to turn out. So what I'm thinking is we're going to take a sentiment, die cut it, and place it in the center and have all of our beautiful spring foliage coming out from there. So I'm going to stamp celebration, script, greetings, anniversary, and happy on this black cardstock. This card is actually my parents' anniversary card. Their anniversary was the 26th of May. And so I wanted to have a pretty card to send to them, and this is what I made. But as always, and I know I mention this all of the time in my card making videos, this design could be for lots of occasions. So here are some of the other greetings in the Celebration Scripts stamp set. Graduation, shower, retirement, wedding, baby, congratulations, and don't forget the birthday set. There's a birthday stamp set in the same kind of style from Pretty Pink Posh. Use that and make birthday cards. This works for all kinds of things. Maybe you need a sympathy card. The same design would work for that. So I, as always, just really love making something that's going to work for many occasions. I did put a little liquid glue on the back of Anniversary. It was stamped on black cardstock with clear embossing ink, heat embossed with white embossing powder. Die cut with the coordinating die. I really do love that there's coordinating dies for this Celebration Scripts stamp set. And then carefully tucking the foliage and things kind of back behind. And it kind of looks like a hot mess before it looks amazing. And I don't want to cover up too much of the greeting, so I am going to play around with placement, figure out how I want everything to go, but I want a nice assortment of greenery and florals above and below. And that little stripe, isn't that just the perfect finishing touch? I absolutely love it. And we're going to kind of just build from the background up. So I'm building with the foliage first, and then we're going to add lots of color. And I want it to kind of take up the whole space above as well as below. I'm using a little liquid glue to pop those in place. Yeah, that A definitely needs to be in front of the leaf. I did not like it back behind. And I did try to group similar flowers together. I thought they looked a lot better that way. So you'll notice kind of all those red flowers grouped together, the purples grouped together. That was very intentional. And let's put the loop of our Y above the greenery. We've got some pretty little pink tulips here. It's starting to look good now. I am loving this. I love building my little floral bouquets. Some of the flowers are back behind the leaves, some are in front. And we're just going to keep working and adding yellow. I think yellow is always a great little touch. I don't know what it is about yellows, but it just adds such a pretty little pop, little sunshiny pop. And I spilled some glue where it wasn't supposed to be. I have a few little individual leaves. This is just going to add to that great foliage. And I think that looks good. I'm really, really loving this. Of course, the final finishing touch today is going to be a scattering of embellishments. I'm going to use some little pearls. Don't forget to add the little flower centers. For a lot of these flowers, it really does clean up the flower center that maybe didn't color quite so nice. So you're just kind of filling it in with the great little circle die cuts. And isn't it amazing? All of these dies came from that single die cut of that whole panel of spring foliage dies. I think that's amazing. You could even break it down and get more than one card if you didn't want to be super extra. I'm going to do a little crystal lacquer in the flower centers. This is going to dry clear. Glossy accents would work similarly. You could also use some Nouveau Crystal drops or anything like that. I need to add the word happy. I noticed I had forgotten when I did anniversary, so I'm going to stamp that on the rest of my scrap of black cardstock with the clear embossing and watermark ink. Heat emboss with white embossing powder. I love a nice stark white. Sentiment on black cardstock, and we're going to use the Sentiment Labels dies from Simon Says Stamp to die cut this into a sentiment strip that we can then add to our card. It's going to be super teeny tiny, but it does round out our sentiment perfectly. So I'm running that through my die cut machine. I'm going to put a little adhesive on the back. And originally, or maybe I did use foam adhesive, yeah. I do use a little foam adhesive here. I wasn't exactly sure if I liked the foam adhesive or not, but I used the waffle flower foam adhesive, and my favorite thing about it also is kind of a curse. It's super sticky. So you better be sure that you have stuck it down where you want it to go. And that finishes off the sentiment. Like I said, I am going to finish with a scattering of Seafoam Pretty Pink Posh Pearls, and my card is done. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for this coloring spring foliage die cuts with Copic markers. The supplies I used to create my card are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to my Patreon members. If you would like to become a member of Patreon, please click the link in the description below. We would love to have you over there as part of our community. Here is another video featuring pretty pink Posh products that you might be interested in. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel, hit that like button, and don't forget to click the notification bell to always be notified when I have a new card making video. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll see you next time.